are back on Open Line. I'm Chuck Long here with legal expert Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm. A lot of you calling in, getting great advice. The Kennedy Law Firm, one of the top law firms in the state of Tennessee. They've earned their reputation well. It's good advice that Kevin gives on this show every time he's here. Our lines light up like crazy. If you're just tuning in, just go ahead, give us a call. If you've got that question, you've been wondering about something, some legal question, this is the time that you can ask that question. And it also helps a lot of other people. You ask that question, a lot of people benefit from Kevin's answers. So what we're going to do right now, we're going right back to the lines right now. And Paula is on the line with us. Paula, we're glad that you were here this evening. And do you have a question for Kevin?
Yeah, I do. I've got two quick questions.
Okay.
First one has to do with the fact that, it's got to do with preparation of a will. There's no spouse involved. There's no parents, only a sibling. And does the sibling would the court just give it to the sibling without a will, and then the children of the sibling would be the next thing, or I know it automatically goes to the spouse or to the parents, but I just didn't know if the sibling has that standing. That's the first question. The second question is, I filed a complaint with a state agency, and was turned down. I had the right of appeal through that same agency, which I took advantage of. But before I was turned down, I referenced this the last time I called you, so you may be familiar with it. Basically the investigator was prejudicial, and they admitted that he was prejudicial, and they didn't take him off the case though. But they still ruled against me, and they said that they dealt with him, but they wouldn't be specific about what they did. And I did speak with the executive director. She basically upheld what they were saying. I mean, that whatever, she just said, this is the way it is. You have the right of appeal through the court system if you want to, but the matter in question, the filing fee for the court would exceed what I was looking for, or what I had requested. So I don't consider that to be effective. I did ask the executive director if I could get contact information for the board of commissioners, and she refused me that. She said that they'll just they'll just send it back to us, and if you want to, talk to Phil Williams or something, and we've dealt with him before, and we're just, so they just figure like they hold all the cards.
Well, you are talking very sophisticated. You've been around the block. You understand. I'll take the first one, and yes, you're right. If there are no children, there's no parents, it would go to the siblings, and if the siblings had passed away, it would pass on to their siblings, right? They call that per stirpes, falling in line. That's why you should have a will, and tell everybody to have a will. If you've got close people to you, see that they get a will. This is the time to do it, no doubt, especially with COVID hanging over us. We never know when it's going to strike. So I'm telling you to have your parents. And you know what we hear a lot? My mom and daddy, they just won't do it. Well, there comes a time you got to say, Mom, Dad, we've got to come to a reality talk. Let's try to get this done. And then if we don't, we'll all be sad. Back to your situation. And the investigator, if you deal with state agencies, they're going to have an investigator to come down and investigate. I always love to hire a lawyer, because I like for that lawyer to try to deal with that investigator, whether they're coming against you or whether they're for you and you're the victim. It's unusual if you ever have anybody said, yes, I was biased, and then they acknowledge it, and you did the correct thing. You went to the executive director, and yes, what's keeping you from going to the board? You could get everyone's name. It's probably public record somewhere, and you could write them directly if there was something going on. People do that all the time on board of directors for banks, and they go to boards of education. Of course, the people that are involved underneath the board, they don't want to deal with all those problems. And of course, the general public, all we want is what's fair. If this is fair, then we don't have to take these measures. Thank you for your question. It helps lots of people.
Absolutely does. We appreciate that, Paula, very much. We're glad that you called in this evening. We've got a lot of you on the line, so we're going right back to the phone lines right now. We appreciate you being with us this evening. Sandra, you are on Open Line. What is your question for Kevin? Can you hear us, Sandra?
Yes. Yes, I have a question concerning a workers' comp case. I was never able to see their doctors, only saw my doctor. And they're telling me that I don't have a case because of my doctor is not saying it's related to the workers' to the workers' comp injury.
Okay, here's what we address right off the bat. If you are working for a company and you are injured, do a first report. Notify your employer, I have a workers' comp claim. Then they have a right to send you to the healthcare professionals and their doctors. We get into a lot of certain people say, well, I don't want to say it because I don't want to be fired. Then they come back later and try to make a claim because they placed it on their insurance. And then their insurance says, hey, guys, if it's workers' comp, we want you to pay. You know what would be a terrible situation? If your insurance says, we're not going to pay because it's workers' comp, and the workers' comp insurance says, hey, guys, we're not going to pay because it wasn't a lawful claim, then you're really caught. So the word to the wise is always make that first report and go along with it. It's not to say you can't have a second opinion anytime with your own private, but you got to kind of follow their rules. The Tennessee workers' comp law, they've revamped it. And every time they revamp it against the worker, it's also against the lawyer, because the lawyer and the worker they have their things lined up together. The lawyer gets 20% of whatever's recovered. But there's so many things they've shut the door. Remember this, every time the legislature shuts the door on the working man, it affects his lawyer, because those are the last places you can get any representation. It's the insurance company and the employer. They dictate, because they've got this legislation through workers' comp that really puts the worker at a disadvantage. So what is the word? Knowledge, learn. And you need to go see a lawyer. But as soon as you don't follow the rules, that insurance company and their lawyer is going to say, you didn't follow the rules. If you have a car wreck and you go to the doctor, he says, come back next week, and you don't, they're going to say, oh, because of their negligence, they didn't follow all the care that was prescribed. We're not going to pay, or we're going to pay so little. So everything you do, everything you say can be, and it will be used against you. Learn what you need to do and do it. Thank you for calling.
Absolutely. We do appreciate that call, Sandra. And that's the beauty of Open Line. It's interactive. You get to ask her specific question, and we're going to Amy right now. Amy, we appreciate your patience. We're glad that you're here with us on Open Line. And what's your question?
Okay, my husband and I are both on disability, and we didn't receive a stimulus check. Well, we found out that we had been claimed by somebody, but we don't know who we were claimed by. I was wondering if there is a way that we can find out and what we need to do about it.
Yes, you can always call the IRS. They are really hard to get in touch with. You need to get to one of those IRS agents. Perhaps you'll have to make an appointment and go in and have a meeting. Take your Social Security number and your records and sit down and say, guys, we never got ours. Somebody has intercepted that. We've not given them permission to do so, and track it down. It's a lot of hassle, but that's running rampant too, everywhere. Prior divorces, we had an old bank account. They sent the money to the old spouse because that was where you'd filed your income tax before. And no one realized that until the stimulus checks came. And so many people said, I'm not going to give him anything. He owes me money. So that's where you are. But the IRS is a governmental agency. And so with those, there's always a hierarchy, and keep going and keep pushing your own cause. If you don't, it's lost forever.
All right. Thanks so much, Amy. Kevin, our lines are extremely busy right now. We're just going right to the next caller, and we do appreciate Cornelia being with us this evening on Open Line. Cornelia, what's your question for Kevin?
Yes, I was calling about my husband passed away 2 years ago, and he had a timeshare that he has paid for, and that he had it before we got married. And I was just wondering, I can't afford to keep paying the maintenance on it, and it's not my name, so I was wondering how I can get out of it.
Okay, part of that, Chuck, it didn't come through, so I just heard pieces of that. Can you restate her question?
Cornelia, you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, if you could go ahead, just ask your question again. It didn't get through to Kevin, but he's here listening now.
Okay. My husband passed away 2 years ago, and he had a timeshare, and he had bought it before we were married, and he had paid for,
but I don't. The maintenance I have to pay. I don't want to keep on paying for it, but they say I have to pay for it because it was, my husband's, and I was just wondering how to get out of that.
Okay.
I understand. Then what you need to do is go in and hire a private lawyer. Let that lawyer contact them, and there are ways that you can discuss privately about that. And people do that all the time. It's quite common. And so, yeah, there's ways around that. So go and talk to a lawyer privately and let them advance your cause and try to stop that, because you're just going to keep spending money that you won't ever use.
All right. Good advice, Kevin. All right. Again, the line's extremely busy. We appreciate your patience this evening. We're going to get to as many of these calls as we can. Right back to the lines here on Open Line with Karen. Karen, good evening. And what's your question for Kevin?
Yes, thanks so much. This is a landlord-tenant situation. Now, I lived in an apartment community for nearly 2 years, and almost the whole time that I was there, I had to complain about other tenants, either the tenants downstairs smoking weed and contaminating my, air quality, or people making loud noises, and I just couldn't have any peace there. So finally, I had an attorney send them a letter about all of that, and citing some laws about quiet enjoyment and such, but that didn't do anything, because the property manager would say to me, well, you should call the police. And I said, well, it's in the lease that quiet enjoyment is my right, and it seems like that's your responsibility. So eventually I did call the police, but what would happen is, when they would come, the people downstairs making all the noise, they would see them and they would stop the noise, or they would tell the property manager, oh, we're not making any noise, etc. So eventually what happened is the property manager sent me a threatening letter saying that if you complain again within 2 weeks, we're going to evict you. So now I've moved out of there, and I moved out, and so I paid them for the 4 days that I was there in the month of May, and I asked them to send my deposit. But now they're trying to say that I have to pay the rent from May, even though they didn't send me any notice within 30 days saying that I owe anything, plus there was no damages, and they did send an email saying that there were no damages in the apartment. And now I have had to get an attorney to file a claim for my deposit, but he said that their attorney has said, well, they're going to file a claim against me too, because I stayed a few days in May, and I don't see what that has to do with the law at all.
Okay.
They constructively evicted me, really, based on all
that's a good legal position.
Me. So,
yes. And really what's happening to you, it's this bullying technique that landlords are using, and everybody hates a bully. But you, man, were very smart. You had a lawyer send the letter, said, you're messing with my quiet enjoyment of this property. I'm paying my money for quiet, and you have really robbed me. So you have a legal basis to stand on. Now, remember, the landlord-tenant, they've got these laws out there to protect the landlord, too. There is a law that says that if you leave, you're supposed to give them a full 30 days notice. So they're trying to use that against you, and it's an interpretation. Does the quiet enjoyment, does your proof rise to the level that it's greater than theirs? And then that is what would a reasonable person do under those circumstances. So you certainly have a right to stand on your position. But again, a judge is going to have to hear your side and their side. They're going to argue. We were entitled to this money. You're going to argue. Y'all constructively evicted me, and the judge has got to call it. So there you go. Also, it gives you a good spot for the two lawyers to negotiate a compromise. All or nothing. Thank you, but you did really good. I was proud of your assessment of how you handled it.
Absolutely. We do appreciate that call, Karen. And once again, that's one of those questions that benefits a lot of you out there listening, because I know some people also have been in that situation. We've got a lot of you on the line right now, but we do need to take a short break. But hang on the lines with us, because when we come back, more calls with attorney Kevin Kennedy. We'll be right back on Open Line.